chapter 5, the handwriting on the wall was for the last days. Oops. Chapter 7, the 4 beast empires, again, is for the last days. Chapter 8, the ram and the goat, was for the last days. All these things are for our time now at the end of this age. Chapter 10, 11, and 12, a complete history down to the end of this age, was for the last days. We skipped chapter 9 because I want you to now focus on it. Chapter 9 also is the history of the people of Israel, and it too was for the last days. It was never about Yeshua. Daniel chapter 9 was never about Jesus. Nor in the gospel does anyone use Daniel 9 to prove Jesus was the Messiah. Not one apostle, not even Yeshua himself. Nobody used it to prove that he was the Messiah. So why do Christians insist it is about Jesus when none of the apostles nor Jesus thought Daniel 9 proved he was the Messiah? The apostles knew it was not about him. The first use of the Daniel 9 prophecy was during the times of the Maccabees. The Septuagint tries to connect the death of Onias III by saying Daniel 9 as follows: and after 7 and 70 and 62, the anointing will be taken away. This year that this teaching was being promoted was in 172 BC. The Daniel 9 prophecy was being used for Onias in 172 BC. This means it began that prophecy in the year 662 BC. That's how they began to apply it. So I'm showing you a continual trend down to our time. The second use of this Daniel 9 prophecy, from the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have the Testament of Levi and the Ezekiel document. It's in that scroll there. The Essenes believe the 490 years ended in the year 3 BC to 2 BC. They began with the return from the exile in 493 BC. This is why there was a great deal of messianic expectation at this time, and Yeshua was born in 3 BC. Even Caesar Augustus, who ruled from 27 BC until his death in 14 AD, thought that he might be the Messiah. So the third use of the Daniel 9 prophecy, there were other groups in the time of Josephus who thought the end of the Daniel prophecy took place with the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. This means they began the prophecy in the year 420 BC. So the fourth use, 133 CE was the 49th year of the Jubilee Cycle. 134 CE was the start of the Jubilee year. 63 years had now passed since the temple fell in 70 AD. So they're starting to apply the 62-year part of the prophecy. And because it's a Jubilee year, they thought the Messiah was about to come. The Messianic aspirations were strong after the fall of the temple in 70 CE, and Simon Bar Kokhba becomes the leader of the resistance. And they thought Simon was the Messiah. Rabbi Akiva called Simon Bar Kokhba the Messiah, changing his name from Bar Kokhba to Bar Kokhba, in Aramaic from Numbers 24:17. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not near. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall strike the corners of Moab and destroy all the sons of tumult. So Simon Bar Kokhba is this star that Rabbi Akiva is now talking about. But after the revolt failed, they made a play on the original name, Simon Bar Kokhba, and called it Bar Koziba, the son of the lie. So Simon Bar Kokhba is now proven to be a false teacher. One of Rabbi Akiva's students, Rabbi Yossi, wrote a chronology to support the position of Simon Bar Kokhba being Messiah, to prove that he was the Messiah. He did this by taking the Daniel 9:24-27 prophecy and claiming that the 70 weeks was 490 years. In the prophecy, the 69 weeks is 69 times 7 to get 483 years that would pass. After that, they claimed the Messiah would appear in 484, or the 484th year. That year was 133 Common Era, when Simon Bar Kokhba began the revolt. So all of this stuff is coming together for them, and they're excited about this time. Using the math, the temple would be destroyed in 420 in the 421st year, which was 70 CE. This meant that the second temple was begun in the year 351 BC. But Ezra says the second temple was completed in the 6th year of King Darius of Persia, which is the year 515 BC, a glaring error of 164 years. Now I'm going through a bunch of numbers here, and I know it first thing in the morning, and Joe's coming at you with all this stuff all of a sudden. Just bear with me. You can watch it over later, but bear with me. There's a point to this. You're going to see where we are today. We now look at the early church fathers. The first one is Justin Martyr, who does not mention the book of Daniel from the records left. This is about the year 100 to 168 Common Era. So that's the first time the church fathers used the Daniel 9 prophecy. Irenaeus is the earliest to connect the Daniel 9 prophecy to Jesus, but then he also says that the last 3.5 years leads us into the 7th millennium. This is the first place where someone claims the 70 weeks are not yet fulfilled. And this is the year 180 Common Era. So the sixth use of this prophecy is Clement of Alexandria in 200 Common Era, 200 AD. Clement is the first to view the 70 weeks as referring to Israel as a nation. He also linked the most holy as describing Jesus. And he is the first to posit a hiatus between the 69th and the final 70th week. This is now called the gap theory. And that same theory is being used by Christianity to this day. But this is where it developed. So between the 7 and the 62, then there's a gap of who knows how many years. And this is why Christianity says you could be called, or Jesus could return at any day. Because they don't know, and they're guessing. They just have no clue. The seventh use of the Daniel 9 prophecy is Tertullian in the year 203 Common Era. And he mistakenly linked the start of the 437.5 years, starting with Darius the Mede, unto the birth of Jesus. The final 52.5 years were from the birth of Christ to the destruction of the temple. But in all of his chronology, he omits many years and many kings. So he again is guessing and using a faulty chronology. So the eighth use, Hippolytus, a disciple of Irenaeus, in 202 Common Era, wrote that the start of the first 69 weeks began with Joshua and Zerubbabel until Jesus, but his numbers do not add up. So you see a common thread here. Everyone's guessing. They don't know where it fits. They're trying to make it fit. He then had a gap ending in the year 500. So 500 Common Era is when he believed the 7th millennium would begin. The ninth use of the Daniel 9 prophecy is Julius Africanus. And in 232 Common Era was the first to reject Cyrus as the start of the 70 weeks and insist it began with Artaxerxes in the 20th year of his reign. He also believed the start of the 7th millennium was in the year 500. Now, Julius Africanus is the one that we still use to this day. Julius understood the year to be the 4th year of the 43rd Olympiad, which is the 444th BC year, when Nehemiah was granted permission to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Using the Olympiads, he then said the 490 years terminated in the 15th year of Tiberius, when Jesus was baptized. Okay, you're still with me. Julius was also the first to categorically state the Daniel 9 prophecy was about Jesus and couldn't believe the Jews never saw it. So this is the first time anyone said this prophecy was about Jesus. This is the first time by Julius Africanus. No one before that thought it was about Jesus. All of these early fathers based their chronology starting with the baptism of Jesus and going back 483 years from that date, leaving the last 3.5 years to come at some point in the distant or near future. They just never knew. They were always guessing. Most modern theologians use Ezra 7 and the 7th year of Artaxerxes of 458 BC to begin their counting of those 483 years. This then brings you to the fall of 26 Common Era. There is no year zero. They all then begin to fudge the start date because they all have the death date between 28 and 34 Common Era. So that 458 BC, they move it. 455, 456, whatever their theology is, they move that date around a little bit to fit whenever they believe that Jesus died. But the gap theory is still held by most theologians today as true. At some point, those last 3.5 years will begin. When that is, no one knows. But this is not what the prophecy says. The newest version of when those last 3.5 years will be are based on this scripture in Hosea 6:2. After 2 days, he will bring us to life. In the third day, he will raise us up and we shall live in his sight. This is the newest understanding today. They have assumed the 2 days to be 2,000 years based on their understanding of a day being like 1,000 years, as Peter claims. 2 Peter 3:8, but beloved, let not this one thing be hidden from you, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. So since Yeshua died, 2,000 years later brings you to when? Well, he started his mission in 27, 28, 29, 30, died in 31. Is it 27, 28? Is that when the 2,000 years is over? And they begin to speculate. We also have Psalms 90, verse 4. For 1,000 years in your sight are as yesterday, when it is past, and as a watch in the night. So based upon this, some now are claiming that the start of the last 7 years, or the last 3.5 years of the tribulation, depending on which group you're in, is 2,000 years after the baptism or death of Jesus, starting in the year 27 and ending in the year 34. So in the year 2027, or in the year between 2027 and 2034, that's when they believe the end of the tribulation is. Okay, I've gone pretty quick here. I'm showing you this. These are all the guessing that people do. And I want to make sure that you guys are not guessing. I want you to know the facts. All of these theories sound plausible. They sound good. But which one is correct, and how can you prove it without waiting until the event is past? So that's what we do at sightedmoon.com. We prove all things. We try and prove these things so that you can understand them. It is rather easy once you understand it, but until you do, then you will continue to chase fables and you will not know when to be ready or where to be at the proper time, because you just will not know. And the Philippines has a significant role in these last days, so it's important that you understand. Here's your proof. Here's how you start to learn. 2 Kings 19, and this shall be a sign to you, you shall eat this year such things as grow of themselves, and in the second year that which springs up of the same, and in the third year sow and reap and plant vineyards, and eat the fruits of them. This verse is telling you how to figure out every single sabbatical year in history. It is also telling you how to figure out every single Jubilee year in history, both going forward and backward. The year that you are to eat such things as grow of themselves is the year 701 BC. It is the most documented and provable year in the Bible. And it is the 49th year. It's a sabbatical year. The second year that you are to eat, which springs up of the same, that year is the year 700, and it is the 50th year. It is a Jubilee year. So when you count by 7 from 701 BC, you will hit every sabbatical year throughout history, going forward and backward. I'm sure Dennis has shown you this. It's on your charts, it's on that big chart in the wall there at the Torah Center. We now know of 89 sabbatical years from biblical records, archaeological and historical documents, and every single one matches with the 701 BC when you count by 7. Every single one. Are they still here with us, Dan, Randy?
We have one of them, Dennis, we just lost, so keeping an eye out for him.
Dennis, let me know. Can you hear me or do we lose you? Okay, let's pause the tape. By 7, thank you, Randy. When you count by 7 from 701 BC, you will hit every sabbatical year throughout history, going forward and backward. We now know of 89 sabbatical years from biblical records, archaeology, historical, and documents, and every single one of them matches with 701 BC. When you count by 7, every single one lines up. When you count by 49 from 700 BC, you will hit every Jubilee year throughout history, going forward and backward. And when you do this, each and every known sabbatical year also will match every single one. So this is what we say at setandmoon.com, prove all things. And now we are able to prove when every sabbatical and every Jubilee year is throughout all of history, and all the archaeology, all the history, all the biblical references, they all match, which tells us we're onto something great. But there's a but there. There's a but. We are told in Genesis that Jehovah is not going to keep on fighting with mankind. He has given us 120 Shana, 120 Jubilee cycles. And Jehovah said, my spirit shall not always strive with man. In his erring, he is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. That word years is the Hebrew word for Shana, and it means cycles of time. So Jehovah is going to give us 120 cycles of time. That's your big clue. When you do the chronology from Adam to the Exodus, which anybody can do, and you plot out those dates out in Jubilee cycles, you will see that the time of the Exodus took place was after the 50th Jubilee cycle, or after the 50th Jubilee year since the creation of Adam. Having done all this homework, you are now ready to properly address the prophecy of Daniel 9. So I've skipped over a big section here, so let me just explain. When you do the chronology back here, from Adam to the Exodus, and then you connect the Exodus with Solomon, and then you connect that down to our history today, you will end up with today, 2022, we are in the 120th Jubilee cycle. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining that and going through it. I have another teaching we can do that on, or you guys already should know this. But I want to get to the Daniel 9 prophecy. So this is the important thing to understand. If you want to understand Daniel 9, you have to do the chronology from Adam until our time today. It's important. And if you don't know how to do that, ask Dennis or Pastor Raphael, and they can direct you, or they can show you our teachings on it. They have it there. So now we're able to address the Daniel 9:24-25 prophecy. So we're going to focus here on Daniel 9:25. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the command to restore and build Jerusalem to Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The chronology here is important. There are 7 weeks and 62 weeks, not 69. It's 7 and 62. All Christian teachings ignore that the 7 weeks and the 62 weeks are 2 distinct periods of time, and they then make them 69 weeks for their theory and their theology. Daniel is not talking about the 7-day week, from which everyone gets the 70 times 7 formula for their 490 years. The word Daniel is using is for weeks is Shabuah, and is the feminine of the word Shavuot for the Feast of Weeks, which for us is just a week away or less than a week away, this coming Sunday. The Feast of Weeks. Daniel is talking about the Feast of Weeks. Daniel is telling them to count 70 feasts of weeks, which are 49 days in length. In other words, he is telling you to count 70 times 49, not 70 times 7. Do not forget that Daniel was told to seal up the books and the vision until the last days. This was so no one would understand until the time of the end. We are in the time of the end now. Daniel was told to seal the books until the time of the end. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true. But you shall shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. That's Daniel 8:28. Daniel 12:4. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. That knowledge could be all kinds of information or knowledge about Torah. It shall increase. It is now time to prove that Daniel 9:25 is speaking of 49s and not 7s. How do you prove that? Don't just believe me, you got to be able to prove it. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the command to restore and to build Jerusalem to Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It is also time to prove that Daniel 9:25 was never speaking about Yeshua, nor was it about counting 490 years from Darius, Cyrus, or Artaxerxes. Daniel was speaking about counting from when Moses spoke to Jehovah at the burning bush. Now, because you've done the chronology, you know when Moses spoke at the burning bush. Here are the 7 times when Jehovah told Moses to go and get the people Israel. Exodus 3:10, Exodus 3:12. Okay, you can read this after or go back and view it after. Exodus 3:16, go and gather the elders. Exodus 3:17, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites. Exodus 3:18, and they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt. Exodus 4:12, and now go. Who? Moses, go. And I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say. Exodus 4:19, and Jehovah said to Moses and Midian, go. Come on, Moses, get going. Moses got all these excuses for not going. And Jehovah's telling him, go and return to Egypt. You are then told that from the burning bush, there will be 7 Jubilee cycles or 7 49s. Know therefore and understand that from the going out of the command we just showed you is from Jehovah to Moses to restore and to build Jerusalem to Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. 7 Jubilee cycles. When we start counting from the Jubilee cycle of the burning bush and the Exodus, we count 7 Jubilee cycles. We end up at, so here's the Jubilee cycle of the Exodus. Moses is talking to Jehovah at the burning bush about 1383. Nobody knows exactly, so we're guesstimating it. But that Jubilee cycle started in 1386. So the number 1 on the right-hand side, this is the 1, the first one. Here's the second one. And each one's going from bottom right to top left. Here's the 3rd Jubilee cycle. Here's the 4th Jubilee cycle. Here's the 5th Jubilee cycle. Here's the 6th Jubilee cycle. Here's the 7th Jubilee cycle. And after 7 Jubilee cycles, Messiah the Prince. King David was born in 1040 BC and made king of Judah in 1010 BC, and then king over all of Israel in 1003 BC. King David was anointed by Samuel when he was a young boy. All of Judah anointed him again when he became king over Judah. And then all of Israel anointed him again in 1003. The word anointed is Mashiach. King David is your Mashiach that Daniel 9 is speaking of. After 7 Jubilee cycles, we come to the time when King David was born in 1040 BC and when he was anointed by Samuel as a child. He was anointed again when he became king over Judah. I guess if I stuck to my notes, I wouldn't be repeating myself, right? He was anointed again when he became king over Judah in 1010 BC, and then again when he was made king over all of Israel in 103 BC. King David is the anointed prince. He is the Messiah, the prince Daniel is speaking about. And he came exactly after 7 Jubilee cycles, just as it says in Daniel 9:25. There's no fudging of the dates. Counting the 62 weeks or the 62 Jubilee cycles from this time of David, then brings us to the year 1996. 1996. 1996 was a Jubilee year and also the start of the 70th week of Daniel 9. 1996 is also the start of the 120th Jubilee cycle since the creation of Adam and is the end of this 6th millennial day, as Genesis 6:3 says. Daniel 9:25 speaks of another Mashiach, another anointed. After 62 weeks, Mashiach, Messiah, shall be cut off. Now, Christians struggle with this. Does that mean that Yeshua is going to be cut off? No, so they try and make it fit for when he was killed the first time, but not for himself. And the people of the ruler who shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end of it shall be with a flood, and ruins are determined until the end shall be war. Psalm 105:15 saying, touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm. This verse is telling you that Israel, all 12 tribes, and her descendants are the anointed. Israel. Anointed is Mashiach, which is often translated Messiah. It means anointed. Israel is his anointed. This is speaking about Israel. The second anointed refers to all of Israel, and they are the ones who will be cut off and trampled underfoot. And after 62 weeks, Messiah, Israel, the anointed, shall be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the ruler who shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. So it's Israel that's about to be cut off. And not just the state of Israel, this is all 12 tribes. When the world is focused on the return of Jesus and not on repenting from not keeping the covenant, they will not understand why they are being destroyed. As Daniel 9:25 says, they will be. It is time to focus on returning to the covenant and keeping the commandments. We, this world, are about to be cut off, and most people have no clue what is about to happen. No clue. We've explained this all in our book. I'm not advertising the book, but if you talk to Dennis and Dennis tells me a little secret, I'll give you the book. Okay, so if you want the book, you want to read it, contact Dennis and contact me, and I'll give it to you. It's important that you understand. And that book is going to explain everything that we've just talked about in much more detail. This book also explains it. It helps you to do the chronology, it helps you understand the Sabbatical and Jubilee cycles. Again, a little secret, talk to Dennis, and we'll get you the book if you want to read it, if you're going to study it. Now, I want to also encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter and to our YouTube channel, where we have all these teachings explained week after week after week, and they're there. They're archived there. We ask people to make a donation. You don't have to. They're there. They're free. If you can help Dennis do the work, then help Dennis do the work. Support Dennis. That's where this money goes anyway. To Dennis and Ike and to Leo. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to raise money to help you guys do the work. So Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. So we've read that. The 70th week is the 70th Jubilee cycle, since Jehovah told Moses to go and get his people. That 70th Jubilee cycle began in 1996 and goes to 2044. Now you've got this on your wall there at the Torah Center, 1996 in the purple in the right-hand side. You can see in the yellow, it says the 70th week. It also says in yellow, this is the 120th Jubilee cycle. You have this chart there at the Torah Center. We are now in the year 2022. It's the 6th year of the sabbatical cycle. All these things become important to understand. And he shall, verse 27 in Daniel 9, and he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause sacrifice and offering to cease. And on a corner of the altar, desolating abominations, even until the end, and that which was decreed shall be poured on the desolator. Now, Randy, who's helping me do this, and I just came back from Israel, where we went to see where the abomination is going to be set up on the corner of the altar. And we found it. It's not set up yet. The middle of the 70th week is 2020. Okay, the middle of the 70th week is 2020. And in the midst of the week, the midst of the Jubilee cycle, he shall cause the sacrifice and offering to cease. 2020, in the middle of the Jubilee cycle, he shall cause these things to cease. What happened in 2020? It is on March 11th, 2020, when WHO, the World Health Organization, declared a worldwide pandemic. That very same week, all the churches, all the synagogues, all the mosques, all the temples, all the places of worship were shut down. The daily sacrifices of our lips had ceased. Is this prophecy being foretold? Is this coming true? Is this what's happening? Daniel 12:11, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away and the desolating abomination set up, a 1,290 days shall occur. If we are correct about the time when the daily is taken away, then the 1,290 days brings you to the fall feast in 2023. We just had an Adar bet in 2022. The 1,290 days is three years with one Adar bet, which is an extra 30-day month, which gives you the 1,290 days. We just had an Adar bet this year. Okay, so I'm not prophesying that the abomination is going to be set up in the fall feast of 2023, but I'm looking for it to be set up at that time based on what we've just shared with you. The fall feast in 2023, winter. We just had a Nadar bet in 2022, which, okay, now I'm repeating myself again. 2023 is also a Shemitah year, a sabbatical year of rest, and is preceded by the closures of all churches in March of 2020. So the fall feasts come in the winter time. And now why is that important? Because what Matthew 24 says, verse 15, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, nor let him in the field turn back to take his clothes. And woe to those who are with child, and to those who give suck in those days. But pray that your flight is not in winter. Winter begins at the first day of the 7th month, nor on the Sabbath day. That word is Sabbaton. It's a high holy day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world to this time. No, nor ever shall be. And unless those days should be shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. For your sake. Leviticus 26:14. So this should be review for you. But if you will not listen to me and will not do all these commandments, if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul hates my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, so that you break my covenant, I also will do this to you. I will even appoint terror over you, consumption and burning fever, consuming the eyes and causing sorrow of heart. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. And I will set my face against you, and you shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and you shall flee when none pursues you. So this is a synopsis of everything. But look at the part in the middle there. Consumption and burning fever, consuming the eyes and causing sorrow of heart. And think about what we've just gone through in the last 2 years. Just think about it. I've said that these curses, there's 5 curses in Leviticus 26, and they apply to each of the sabbatical cycles in this Jubilee cycle. The first curse I called terror. Excuse me. And in 1998, we had the U.S. Embassy in Kenya and Tanzania blown up. There was another U.S. Embassy about to be blown up, but they were able to stop that one. In the year 2000, with the USS Cole, was a terror attack. In 2001 was 9/11. Now, I didn't understand this until 2005, but I knew something was going on in 2001, but I didn't know what it was. This is the first curse of terror. This is the first curse of Leviticus 26 taking place. And these are the last Jubilee cycle that we're in now. This is the 70th week of Daniel that we're in now. Keep in mind what's going on. I want you to pay attention. This is on your nightly news every night. Okay, so I just read. I got to stick to my notes. I'm repeating myself. Everything good, Dennis? I'm looking at you. Everything good? Okay. Next curse. And if you will not listen to me for all of this, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. And I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven like iron and your earth like bronze. And your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land shall not yield its increase, neither shall the trees of the field yield their fruits. This is the second sabbatical cycle from 2003 to 2009. 2003 to 2009. During those 7 years, between 2003 and 2009, they were some of the hottest years ever recorded in history. But since that time, they have continued to increase in temperature, or the world temperatures continue, so that the hottest year on records are now the most recent ones. The hottest years on record are these ones: 2009, 2005, 2013, 2010, 2014, 2018, 2017, 2015, 2019, 2016. So even the curse of the second sabbatical cycle, the years have gotten hotter than all of them. Sixteen of the top 17 have occurred since 2000, since the year 2000. Now you wonder why your typhoons are getting worse in the Philippines? This is why. 2020 ties 2016 as the hottest year on record. I don't have any statistics for 2021 yet. I'm not sure where it landed. We're in 2022 now. What is going to happen this year? So these are facts, and they are being connected to prophecy, and they're being connected to Leviticus 26. The third curse. And if you walk contrary to me and will not listen to me, I will bring 7 times more plagues on you according to your sins. I will also send wild beasts among you who shall bereave you, and I will destroy your cattle and make you few, and your highways shall be deserted. And I couldn't figure out what this was. So I was looking for bears, sharks, lions and tigers, dogs, cats attacking. I didn't know what it was. And then I realized what it was later. So this is the third sabbatical cycle from 2010 to 2016. This curse is talking about this cycle. The first influenza pandemic of the 21st century occurred in 2009, 2010, and was caused by the influenza H1N1 virus. While most cases of the pandemic H1N1 were mild, globally it is estimated that the 2009 pandemic caused between 100,000 and 400,000 deaths in that first year alone. Most people never heard of this. The 2009 Swine Flu Pandemic, which is another one that they did hear about, caused by the H1N1 influenza virus and declared by the World Health Organization from June 2009 to August 2010. Some studies estimated that the real number of the cases, including asymptomatic and mild cases, could be 700 million to 1.4 billion people, or 11 to 21% of the global population of 6.8 billion at the time. This is 2009. This is the start of that curse. What is this? This is his creatures, little microscopic creatures. Now we go to the fourth curse. And if you will not be reformed by me, by these things, but will still walk contrary to me, then I will walk contrary to you, and will punish you 7 times more for your sins. So these 7 times are 7 years. And I will bring a sword on you that shall execute the vengeance of the covenant, and you will be gathered inside your cities. I will send the plague among you, and you shall be delivered into the hand of the enemy. Now, I have always focused on the sword part of this curse. I did not focus on the plague part of the curse. So guess what happened? Verse 26, when I have broken the staff of your bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in one oven, and they shall deliver your bread again by weight, and you shall eat and not be satisfied. So this fourth curse in this fourth sabbatical cycle has the sword, which is where I put all my focus on, and the plague, which I did not focus on, and the famine. This fourth curse started in 2017. That flu H1N1, H5N1 bird flu, swine flu, all these flus, SARS, Ebola, that all started in 2009. They keep on going. All these curses continue to be added to the one that's coming next. We've added each one. They're compounding each time. Now, 2020, in this cycle, we've got COVID. Is that what it's called? COVID. Then we got Delta. Now we got Omicron. And yesterday I read how Omicron is now mutated in South Africa. We got 2 new variants in South Africa. And I was also told that the Philippines is about to lock down after the election again. China's locking down now. Is this real yet to you? You spent 2 years in lockdown. Is this real? Starting with 2020, COVID shut down the entire world. This isn't Joe Dumont making up some little story in the corner. Jehovah shut down the whole world. Over 6 million people died. Over 509 million were infected. War broke out in Ukraine. That war has the potential in bringing in NATO. Lithuania and another country up there, I forgot the other one, just today asked to become part of NATO. Is that going to put NATO at war against Russia? This Ukrainian war has the potential to become another world war. Not just another world war, but a nuclear world war. A nuclear world war. So war broke out in Ukraine. Now, because of that, 30% of the world's food or wheat that comes from Ukraine and Russia has been taken off the market because of this Ukrainian war. That started in 2022. The cost of food, the cost of living, interest rates are all shooting higher. I don't know about the Philippines, but what used to cost me $30 in gas is now costing me $100 in gas. It used to cost me $100 for groceries, it's now cost me almost $200 for groceries. Is Jehovah real? And you shall eat and not be satisfied. And you shall eat and not be satisfied. In 2020, all the churches, synagogues, mosques, and places of worship were closed down. And from the time that the daily sacrifices shall be taken away and the desolating abomination set up, 1,290 days shall occur. The churches were locked down. I'm repeating myself. From Passover, March 11, 2020, the 1,290 days included 1 8-hour bet, which we have just had in the end of 2021. 1,290 days from March 11, 2020 brings you to between the Day of Atonement and the Feast of Sukkot in 2023. I am not sure which day because of the sighting of the new moon, the crescent moon. Therefore, when you see the abomination, Matthew 24:15, the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those in Judea flee into the mountains, and let them in the housetops not come down to take anything out of the house, nor let him in the field turn back to take his clothes. And those who are with child, and woe to those who are with child, and to those who give suck in those days. But pray that your flight not be in winter, which is the fall feast days, nor on the Sabbath or Sabbaton, which is the high holy days, for then shall be great tribulation. Is this prophecy talking about 2024? That's 24, 23, 23, 23, I'm sorry, 23. Pray your flight is not in winter, nor on the Sabbath day. 2023. It's right there. March 11, 2020 to the fall holy days of 2023 is 1,290 days. Again, I'm not prophesying, I'm just sharing something with you. Pay attention, watch. It's a Shemitah year. That word Sabbaton can also be or mean a Shemitah year. So now we get to this other part. As it was in the days of Noah. The days of Noah, when Noah's flood took place, was 1656 after the creation of Adam. When we compare that Jubilee cycle to our Jubilee cycle today, that matches up to 2034. Passover, 2034, which is at the end of 2033. As it was in the days of Lot. Again, we're talking about Luke here. As it was in the days of Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed the year before Isaac was born in 2048 after the creation of Adam. That lines up with our 2033. What is this talking about? As it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot. When we also, and it doesn't say this in prophecy, but when we look at the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine for Joseph, those 7 years of famine finish in the year 2243 BC. No, that's not BC, that's after the creation of Adam. That also matches our 2033 year. So the 2033, I've said the fall holy days here. I made the 8th day line up with the Jubilee year of 2045. The first day of the Feast of Sukkot would be 2038, 8 days before that. I'm just checking to see if there's a pattern here to pay attention to, because this is the final Jubilee cycle, the 70th week of Daniel. The Day of Atonement would be 5 days before that, or 5 years, is 2033. That kind of like an aha moment. What does that mean? 2024 would represent the Feast of Trumpets. And the Feast of Trumpets represents the time of war. The Feast of Trumpets, or 2024, is 10 years or 10 days, if the Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, but that's 10 years before the end. Now, keep in mind, we are in the year 2022 right now. 2045 is the start of the 7th millennium. All these end time prophecies must take place before 2044, before the 7th millennium begins. So the 3.5 year tribulation, the 3.5 years for the 2 witnesses, all that's got to take, you got to figure out where that goes in here somehow. Where does it go? Have I got it right? If I don't, show me where you would put it, and so let's see if it fits. The 2 witnesses work from Passover 20. Okay, so the Great Tribulation is from 2033, the Day of Atonement. 3.5 years before that, the Day of Atonement is when Satan's locked away at the end of the tribulation. The Day of Atonement is all about Satan being locked away. So he's got to be locked away at some point. So 2033, if that's the year, then 3.5 years before that brings you to Passover 2030. At Passover in 2030, the 2 witnesses are killed. But they preach for 3.5 years before they're killed. That brings you back to the Day of Atonement in 2026. You see where 2026 is? You see where we are now in 2022. And if you will not, for all this, listen to me, but will walk contrary to me, then I will walk contrary to you also in fury. Fury. Even I will chastise you 7 times for your sins, and you shall eat the flesh of your sons, and the flesh of your daughters you shall eat. And I will destroy your high places and cut down your images and throw your carcasses on the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall despise you. Are you listening to what Jehovah is saying? Verse 31, and I will make your cities waste and cause your sanctuaries to be deserted, and I will not smell the savor of your sweet odors. And I will turn the land into a wasteland, and your enemies who dwell in it shall be astonished at it. And I will scatter you among the nations, and will draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be waste, and your cities waste. Then shall the land enjoy its Sabbaths as long as it lies waste, and you are in your enemy's land. Then shall the land rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. As long as it lies waste, it shall rest, because it did not rest in your Sabbaths when you lived on it. Does Jehovah care about the sabbatical year? Yes. Should we be keeping it? Yes. It's just as important as the Sabbath and the holy days. And it's just as important that you keep the Sabbath at the right time, the holy days at the right time, and the sabbatical years at the right time. It's imperative upon your future life. We are in the year 2022. Well, we just read that curse when you're going to be eating your sons and daughters is in this 5th sabbatical cycle. If all these curses I've shown you from 1996 to 2002, the first curse, 2003 to 2009, getting hotter, the second curse, the plague starting 2010 to 2016, 2017 to 2023, plague, famine, and sword. What is the World Health Organization worried about right now? Famine. Billions of people are going to be famine. And the World Health Organization is saying it's not a matter of not enough food, but the choice we now have to make is, who do we not give the food to? Who do we not give the food to? Which means that those countries that are already starving or on food instability, they're going to be in famine very soon. The Philippines. Dennis, Pastor Raphael, Pastor Ike, Pastor Leo, all these other pastors, and I don't know all their names, all these groups that you guys are helping to set up have an extremely important role in these last days. I've taught this before. I'm not going to teach it to you now. I've used up enough time now, but I have videos on that where I've taught you, and I've taught this, actually this group that Dennis has here, I've actually taught it to. The role of the Philippine people. You need to get ready now. Don't think that was a nice teaching, go out of here and go to a restaurant and forget all about it. You need to start getting water. You need to have food ready for the sabbatical year and beyond. You need to have enough for your family and your relatives and more. You need to stock up on dry goods now. You need to get ready. Now, if we look back here, I began saying this stuff in 2005. We have videos of me saying it in 2008. I wrote my first books starting in 2010, and my other books in 2013 and 14, and when was the other one? 2013, 14, 2019 again. I have this history of saying this stuff and proving it or documenting it, and now it's coming true. I've been praying to be wrong. I've been praying to be wrong about the eating of the children. I've been praying to be wrong about the famine. I've been praying to be wrong about the temperatures going up. I've been praying to be wrong about COVID. I didn't know it was COVID, about the plague. I was praying to be wrong about the war. And you see the war with Russia, they destroy everything. They don't save a single house. They destroy every house, every town, everything. There's nothing sacred to Russia. Brethren, you guys now have a responsibility. You've now heard this. We've recorded it. You'll be able to take it and share it with other people. I've given the PowerPoints to Dennis. If you want them, ask him for it. Prove what I'm saying to be wrong. If you can prove what I'm saying wrong, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to do it. You know, Jem is sitting there in the front row. She saw me there 2018 saying the same thing. Ask Gemma, did these things come true that I've been saying in 2018? Ask Dennis. I don't know who else was there, but it's happening. We're getting closer and closer to the end. I want to be wrong. I want somebody to prove me wrong. I don't want this to happen. But just like a mother who's about to give birth to a child, she knows it's going to hurt. She knows that that 8-pound head is going to come through from between her legs and it's going to hurt. But after the pain, after the child comes out, she forgets all about the pain and just loves that baby. We are going to go through some pain very soon, even so right now. We've had the birth pains. It's about to happen. It's about to get worse. But the Philippines have a different job. You have to get the Philippines ready so that these curses do not affect you as bad as they do other places. And then, as I said before, you have to collect the remnant of Israel, those who are left. So take seriously what you're learning. Don't play the game of trying to, these conspiracy teaching that you see online. Study your Torah, obey God, keep his commandments. And when you do that, he will bless you. The reason you're getting these curses is you got statues everywhere. You got false religion all throughout the Philippines. But you guys are called to teach the truth. So teach the truth. It's Wednesday morning. It's a heavy morning for you guys. Boom, boom, boom. Joe comes at you. We don't have time to play games no more. If you want to play church, then go down to the Catholic church down the road. We just don't have time for playing games. Time's up. These curses are here. Randy and I went to Israel this year. We videotaped where the corner of the altar, that corner of the altar is spoken of in Daniel, is the mountain of offense. And in the corner of that mountain is where we believe the abomination will be set up. So we are watching for it. But prove me wrong. So with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming and listening to me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach. Thank you, Dennis, for having me. I look forward to the time when I can be there in person. It's up to you, Dennis. If anyone's got questions or they want to ask questions, I'll take them now if you want. Or if you want to close down and go for lunch or whatever you're doing, that's fine.
Amen.
Okay, brother. Take over. Son, fix it. Fix it.
Exit na.
Oh, use the problem.
Okay, Randy, you can turn off the.